whoa, welcome to the thing that we are doing right this moment, which is episode 24 of the Nintendo Stuff Podcast.
Hi, I'm Brandon.
Hi, Brandon.
We don't know who you are yet.
We don't know who I am?
No.
I should introduce myself at the beginning of these, shouldn't I?
Probably.
And I'm Logan, and we're going to talk about all the things in this past week that Nintendo has said, that Nintendo has released, that other people have said about Nintendo. And honestly, this past week has been pretty good for it as well. There's been some interesting things that our Lord of Nintendo, Furukawa, has said. We just had a port released today, and then a few other things of note. The Switch has come out into 2019 swinging!
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to slow down. So yeah, let's start by talking about one of our favorite games. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate released December 7th of 2018. We are now over a month out. And while the blog has come to a standstill, has come to an end as far as I can see it, that does not mean that there isn't relevant Smash news. And a big point, it was the best-selling game in Japan in 2018. In less than a month.
Retail.
Yes, retail.
It beat out Monster Hunter World, Smash selling 2.3 million units, with Monster Hunter World in second place at 1.9 million units.
That's pretty good.
If you look down the list a little bit more, too, it's pretty interesting. At number 3, we got Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. No surprise, at 1.2 million. Behind that is Splatoon 2 at 1.1 million. The year after it launched. After that is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 926,000 units, followed by Super Mario Party, Kirby Star Allies, Super Mario Odyssey, Minecraft Nintendo Switch Edition, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Mario Tennis Aces, Marvel's Spider-Man, and Taiko no Tatsujin Drum and Fun for Switch. So out of the 15 games that I just listed, all but 2 were Nintendo games.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Also, it's pretty interesting, but also not that surprising that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were on that list, considering that launched in November of last year.
Yeah.
But so two sets of Pokemon games on that list.
But just the fact that Super Smash Bros. Managed to beat all of those games out in under a month.
In under a month.
Crazy.
It's pretty incredible to think about how much power, Smash Ultimate has. Just Smash Bros. In general, but in particular, like, this game. There's also the metric that it shipped, and we talked about this previously, that it shipped over 5 million copies within 3 days. Like, that's huge for, like, literally any game. There's not a lot of games that do more than that unless they are massive AAA multi-platform releases. And so 5 million within 3 days, like, I'm curious to see where it's at now, right? Like, has it already surpassed 10 million? Is that how fast it moved? Is that the kind of timeline we're looking at? Especially seeing that like in retail, just in Japan, it was the best selling game. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you
It beat out
throw in,
Monster Hunter,
yeah,
a juggernaut that released in the first month of 2018.
yeah. Though I would be curious to see like the full metrics of each game, and not to, I mean, Monster Hunter World is the best selling Capcom game to date, which is no
Right.
small feat. Um,
And of
so
course, we're not including, you know, digital sales here.
right,
That said, if we were to include digital sales, I have a feeling like the gap between Smash and other games would be even wider. I have a
right.
feeling people are more likely to buy digital copies of Switch games than they are of uh, PlayStation games.
Well, yeah, because you want to be able to just take that thing anywhere. You don't want to have to
Right.
carry the cartridges. I mean, most of the games I have are downloaded. A lot of them are smaller titles that are downloadable only, or had like
Of
limited
course.
physical, runs.
Mm-hmm. But still, I think that gap would be wider.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we can move into some of the more general Nintendo news. Oh, did you mention the Spirit Board event?
I didn't. It's on here. Yeah. If you want to talk about that, go for it.
So it's kind of weird to talk about stuff like this because it reminds me so much of like Call of Duty and other ongoing games, but uh, Nintendo Versus tweeted out on their Twitter that the Spirit Board event, Double Experience and Double SP, starts on January 10th, 10 p.m. to January 13th, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
During the event, experience and spirit points received from spirit battles will be doubled. Use this chance to beef up those spirits. It's like double experience weekends in Call of Duty. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
So there's that. They've already done a few of these kind of spirit board events. We've had one for, I think, Super Mario. We had one for people who wear glasses. And I think there was a Fire Emblem one, a few others.
Mm.
But yeah, it's cool to kind of have this kind of ongoing presence for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Even if it's something kind of relatively small like this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, anything to really kind of keep the game moving, give more reasons for people to come back and continue playing the game. I've talked about this before. I hope that there are freemium DLC, that there's modes that they drop later in the life cycle of the game. Certain things that I definitely feel are missing, from the game. Come on, where is my home run contest? You know, like
The
where
modes
is it?
seem to be the thing that people miss the most right now.
Yeah.
Kind of
Uh,
sad because everyone is here, almost everything is here, but we're missing out on quite a few modes.
yeah. And it doesn't seem like they would be too much more work to implement. But also, I'm not the developers. I'm not certain as to what all of that entails. Though, again, I think because this is easily, one of the biggest games on Switch, that we could definitely see modes down the line. Maybe sooner rather than later. Maybe this rumored January Direct really is a thing. And we're going to get some, drops in terms of content for different games.
Have
that
we
are
ever
currently
not
out.
had a January Direct?
That's a really good question, because I feel like it's a pretty regular thing, and it's something that usually like sets the stage, for the year to come. Like everybody's wondering, like we know certain things are coming in 2019, but sometimes it's like, okay, what? And then obviously we were like, okay, all this information's missing. We don't know what the January NES games are going to be. And then Nintendo, around that time, we were thinking it could be announced. They were just like, here's some information, guys. just through, Twitter posts and such, which is fine because it wasn't anything like groundbreaking. It was stuff that it's like, okay, it's good to know that Yoshi's Crafted World is coming out on this date and Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. Yeah. And then obviously the NES games. But
don't take this as a replacement for a direct.
Right.
Also, don't take this to mean there will be a direct.
Yeah.
Basically, it's all meaningless. That's what we learned here today.
Yeah, Nintendo could be doing this for a number of reasons, but also a discussion about what those reasons might be might just be useless because we don't know.
Yeah. All we can do is speculate, and there's not a whole lot of reason to do that in the current state. I think there will be a direct this month in some capacity. Last year we had a direct mini, and despite being called a direct mini, they announced a whole lot of stuff in that.
Yeah.
That's when we learned about the Donkey Kong Adventure DLC and Mario and Rabbids. It's where we heard about Dark Souls.
Yeah.
The Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze port. And I think, was Mario U announced in that too, or was that later?
I honestly can't remember.
Oh,
not
no,
like it really matters all that much.
Last year.
Yeah, not like it really matters all that much considering it was released today.
Right, but what I'm getting at is just like the sheer number of announcements that direct had.
Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't have been announced then. Like I feel like
no, I think it was the September direct from last year.
That time frame makes a lot more sense to me. Like if you're going to announce a port, something that people aren't like highly anticipated, like less than 6 months out, right?
And don't announce it next to your other better 2D platformer being Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
I still need to pick that one up. I need to pick I had a discussion with my roommate about Bayonetta and so many games to get.
Tropical Freeze is one of the best platformers I've ever played.
I hear that from a lot of people.
So now we'll move on to some more general Nintendo news, and this is the namesake for today's podcast. Logan, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so Furukawa recently said, I can't remember where he said this, in the Japanese publication, the
Nikkei.
Nikkei? Yeah.
Nikkei.
He talks about the future of Nintendo, right? He talks about them being flexible. The actual quote reads, "It has been over 30 years since we started developing consoles. Nintendo's history goes back even farther than that. And through all the struggles that they faced, the only thing that they thought about was what to make next. In the long term, perhaps our focus as a business should shift away from home consoles. Flexibility is just as important as ingenuity." And I think this is one of the coolest things about Nintendo. And I don't see this a lot from other like large corporations. There is a sense of integrity. And there is a sense of purpose. Like the people at Nintendo are really putting their best foot forward, right? Yeah. And I think that just comes with the nature of like, we want to make fun games, So I mean, I also kind of see the point where I think Furukawa is probably thinking long term as to what the industry trends are going to look like.
Oh, this is definitely like forward thinking.
Oh, absolutely. And so I mean, I think this should speak to the health of the company overall. I think they're in a great place. Obviously, look at what we have. We have the Switch, which is both a portable and a home console. The idea is that people on average don't live their lives like they used to. And so technology accommodates that. Technology changes and evolves with how we live. And, we have mobile devices. Everybody's got their phones. We got our Switch. We got our computer. We're streaming online all the time. internet bandwidth is getting larger and larger. You know, for example, I have like I get 200 megabits per second down, right? And that's more than enough bandwidth for a myriad of different types of services. So I was just while I was having a conversation about Bayonetta, with my roommate, one of the things that spurred that is we were talking about PlayStation Now, and so both PlayStation Now and Xbox Game Pass, everything is like, okay, cool, you're going to pay a monthly subscription and you're going to get access to this massive library of games. And then with PlayStation Now, they just added the ability to download games, which is great for especially for people who don't have that kind of bandwidth. But they also have the ability to stream those games, And so I see that as part of the future. I think a larger portion is going to be us paying that monthly fee, not so much buying games, individually. And then being able to play, just here's a bunch of games you can play, a Netflix style service, and the only thing that's really getting in the way of that reality is the fact that not everybody has amazing internet just yet, but that changes over time. So,
and there'll be other challenges that come with that too. Price, I think, will be one of them.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if we will someday be at a full conversion to that kind of format for video games. Will there ever be a day when physical media is completely done away with?
Yeah, I mean that's a huge thing because we still have to deal with streaming, like compression, and because of compression, there's artifacts within images. And so there definitely still is that worth to physical media. A lot of that physical media is legitimately higher quality. You're going to get a better experience. And I think the point at which the streaming and us not necessarily having physical media, when that kind of, intersects, is when there's no drawbacks. And there's no compromises in quality.
I think the only compromise we'll have is in preservation.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm sure there will be people out there, even within the industry itself, who are taking care of preservation on a certain level. But that doesn't guarantee that everything will be preserved.
Yeah, right.
So that's probably my only fear when it comes to that.
Right. But the great thing is that you're concerned about it. I know other people are concerned about it. One person of note who talks about it all the time is Norm, gaming historian. He talks a lot about gaming preservation, why emulation is important in that regard.
Go watch his channel if you haven't.
Yeah, it's really great. So that's one of the things I see coming from this statement in terms of just like, Nintendo has recently kind of made this like branding shift of like, we're not a gaming company, we're an entertainment company, and this is like right in line with that.
We're never gonna make mobile games.
Yeah. So I think this is the coolest thing. And
there's another aspect of this we need to talk about.
Okay.
And I'm sure you've seen this, but people are taking this quote and only focusing on the shift away from home consoles, and taking that as a matter of fact. Furukawa didn't say that they were doing that. He's saying that if it comes to it, that's something that the company is willing to do.
Yes. Yeah.
And given the current landscape of Nintendo Switch, pretty sure we're okay. It's selling just fine.
Yeah.
Maybe it does make sense at some point for Nintendo to shift away from home consoles and maybe even become a third-party developer. That's the aspect that I see people latching onto in this discussion. And I just want to stop the spread of doom and gloom because it's all being misconstrued.
Right. I have a hard time believing that this statement includes a future where you're not sitting in front of your TV playing Nintendo games. Like, I'll say that, right? Uh,
Well, I think they're focusing on Nintendo not manufacturing its own hardware.
right. Well, I think in the same breath, like you might say that there might not be a lot of hardware in general. You know, there is still going to be hardware. We're still going to need something to watch and play games on and such and use. But in terms of like all these gaming companies needing or feeling compelled to develop their own dedicated piece of hardware to sell their games on, we might end up moving away from that someday. Uh-oh. Hey, Brandon. I don't hear you anymore. Where where did you go? Well, this is an interesting struggle. You just all of a sudden came. Okay. Um I think we're going to take a short break. Uh-oh.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, you're back.
Hello.
That was weird. All right. Okay. You were saying.
What I was saying is, what I anticipate will happen if all of this comes to fruition is that we will go out and buy a Roku type device that plays all of your consoles on it, and there will be dedicated apps that have PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo associated with them.
Yeah, and there'll probably be some sort of streaming service, and everything's just gonna be in the cloud, and everybody's like, it works so well, and everybody's just okay with that. And
The big point, or the big takeaway, I think, is that Nintendo isn't the only company that's going to be moving away from consoles.
right.
This is going to be like a industry-wide thing.
Yeah, because you know, if all of a sudden like you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to build up an install base, you know, and you're more because you know historically, most companies that are selling consoles will sell them at a loss. And so they won't make any money on the consoles themselves, but they try to make up for it with the sales of software. So if all of a sudden you take away that risk and you're just selling the software, and it doesn't matter because everybody can actually still play it even though they don't have to spend extra money on hardware that, again, the company is losing money on, that's a win-win for everybody, you know. All of a sudden, like, you have $300-$400 that you could just spend on games or other things, you know.
There is a little bit that is lost. I will mention that. You look at Nintendo, and for the last several hardware generations, they've been trying to do innovative things specifically with their own hardware. You know, like the evolution of the Wii Remote and the gamepad.
Right.
Those kinds of things would probably get lost in translation because it would no longer be hardware specific.
Right.
So Nintendo would just have to be innovative directly in whatever software they build.
Well, yeah, there's that, but also because of some of these technologies that are pretty standardized now, you know, who's to say they wouldn't release their own type of controller so you could have a certain type of input?
That's true.
You know, so there's still ways that you can innovate with the hardware.
Just through peripherals.
Yeah. But again, there's no guarantees. We can't see the future. We don't know exactly where we're going to go. Definitely some of the things we've been talking about will take up a larger portion of the industry. Whether they will be the forefront or the only thing is another question entirely, you know. So
you know, as we age, so does Nintendo, and so does their employees. A lot of the kind of legacy employees that Nintendo has had ever since they started developing video games, you know, they're giving things up to the next generation.
right.
And the next generation is obviously going to be more accepting and more forward thinking of today's technology and what's to come next. The people who jumped on the bandwagon for video games that started Nintendo as a video game developer were those people, but for that generation.
Yeah.
So right now we're still in that shift. I think we're still noticing that, especially with like Nintendo Switch Online and how some of it is good and then the majority of it is kind of backwards.
Right.
So I think like maybe in the next 10 years, once Nintendo is pretty much only made of not necessarily our generation, but a younger generation,
Yeah.
I think we'll see more steps going in the direction we've been talking about.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
I think Furukawa is proof of that already, just in what we've seen him say in this.
Yeah,
this
some
interview.
somebody that is essentially in charge of the company. And how old is he? Is he in his 40s?
40s, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's pretty young.
He talked about growing up on NES.
Right.
So like he's been involved since the beginning. Like as a gamer first.
Right.
That's not to say that like people like Iwata weren't, but Iwata
Yeah.
wasn't that old.
So, I think this ties into something that I also kind of I played with the title of this episode, and we're getting some ports, right? So we got New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe on Switch that launched today, which
Right.
I did not play on Wii U, that I really want to pick up because I feel like I want to play a Mario game.
It's a great Mario game. Stand it up next to Donkey Kong, and you might start to see the flaws, but still play it.
Yeah, I don't know, cause like again, I'm not at the point where I'm looking at any like $60 titles right now, and you know if Donkey Kong goes on sale for 30, I might end up getting that before I get New Super Mario Bros. U, you know, but I digress. But we've had this kind of thing with Nintendo in the past like year and a half, that there's been a lot of ports, you know. And there's been a lot of reasons for that. And chances are we probably won't get a lot of those ports when it comes time for the successor to the Nintendo Switch, however long down the line that is, unless it's some of those games that are released later on in the life cycle and get released on both, right? But
Yeah, but for the most part, I don't think that will be happening.
yeah, not like it has when Wii U failed, but there's tons of great games on the Wii U, and we need to fill out the the library.
We gotta give credit where credit's due. Like Nintendo Switch was a rush job.
Yeah,
Like Wii U was an obvious failure, and Nintendo had to back out and get working on something else.
yeah,
That doesn't leave them a lot of time to work on new software, especially when they're keeping the Wii U afloat at the same time until the Switch is ready to launch. So a lot of those games that came out on Wii U, they have to cover the beginning of the Switch's life when there isn't a lot of new software.
right. Yeah, and I won't rip on it because of that, because I personally I'm glad that all these ports were coming, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that most of them are here, and we're getting to the point where the Switch just has like an uber strong library. I mean, we have a Zelda game, we have a Mario game, we have a Mario Kart game, we have a Mario Party, we have a Super Smash Bros. You know, we have a
And
2D
all
Mario.
5 of those are like the top of their franchise.
Right. So, and not to mention like Splatoon and ARMS and Donkey Kong Country, and like it's never ending. And then a Kirby game, like it's all there, and I could go on and on just talking about how amazing the Switch library is, right? But we're finally getting to the point where those things are slowing down. Most of the ports now are like the 3DS, and they're kind of like it's like they're laying it to rest, you know. Oh, here's Kirby's Epic Yarn, and here's another Mario and Luigi game. Here's Luigi's Mansion, the original.
If you haven't played Bowser's Inside Story, That's the best 3DS game that's going to release all year. Just saying.
So, not to knock against Kirby's Epic Yarn, because
all three games are great. They're just not new.
Yeah, they're just not new. So I don't know when they're gonna kill off the 3DS. But
I
mean,
there a quote recently that they're gonna go into 2020 with it?
Well, they probably still got all those new 2DSs, that they gotta get rid of.
Gotta get rid of all that hardware.
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised too if there's a few more ports or remakes down the line.
Also, I think one of the reasons why the 3DS is still alive is because when Nintendo released the Switch, they're coming off the failure of the Wii U. The 3DS, market was still good. It was still healthy. It was a console that was going strong, and
It's still good, and it's still healthy.
Yes, but again, it's not as lively as it once was in terms of releases. And that's okay because, like, if you're just buying a 2DS or a 3DS now and, like, you haven't really played any, like, oh my god, what a back catalog, You're not going to be like, oh no, what am I going to play on 3DS? Well, you got Ocarina of Time, you got Majora's Mask, you got Super Mario 3D Land, you got Dark Moon, you have
one of the most luxurious game libraries ever.
You got Animal Crossing! So it's been a good run. The Switch is off to an amazing start. Wow, Switch is almost 2 years old. We got until March 3rd. It'll be 2 years old.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like it. No,
doesn't feel like it at all. But I mean, it's just taken off, and that's super cool. And we know that there are multiple metrics, right, that we can talk about when we talk about the Switch's success. And one of the best, reoccurring, happenings, I guess you would just call it, with the Switch, is that when people get a chance to buy a game on the Xbox or PS4 or the Switch, and these are games that generally are more stylized, they're not as intense, it's not a question of whether the Switch is going to be able to run it well or not, and all of a sudden, everybody buys it on the Switch because it's going to look just as good, and then you're going to be able to take it on the go. And so just recently, with FDG Games, they had, and this is a remake, I believe, correct? Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom?
Yes.
They came out and they said that, and I quote, "Nintendo Switch continues to amaze us. Not only does it bring us so much joy with its original games, but it's also the most profitable console business ever for us. It's another universe in regards of sales numbers. The Monster Boy game ratio is 8-1 Nintendo Switch versus everything else." That's incredible.
And this is not the first time we've heard this.
It seems to happen all the time. And again, it should be said that there's something to be said that this probably isn't happening as much with some bigger AAA titles where there isn't as much parity between the versions of the game.
I think we need to issue a correction.
Oh yeah?
This is a new game.
Oh, this is a new game. Okay.
This is a new sequel.
Oh, right, because they remade Wonder Boy, right?
Yeah, they remade Wonder Boy 3.
Okay.
And this is a sequel to that series.
Okay, so it's an original game.
Yeah.
Which is crazy cool that they're picking up some old stuff and really running with it. I've heard good things about this game. Obviously, it's doing well for FDG Entertainment.
Wonder Boy was a really successful remake, and I think that's probably what made this happen.
Yeah. I mean, I love the visual style. I love what I'm looking at. I don't really have any other context for how this game plays because I haven't really touched Wonder Boy. but it's definitely like I'm looking at it and I was like, well, I should probably explore this, instead of buying Stardew Valley again and then putting another 100 hours into that.
So yeah, you were talking about visual parity.
Yes.
Yeah, these games are coming to Nintendo Switch with no real compromises, and that's really enticing to the consumer. And the fact that it's also portable, just layers on top of that, making the Switch like the obvious choice for a lot of these games.
Yeah. I've said this time and time again. One of the Switch came at the right time because the disparity between the power of Xbox One and PS4 versus what Nintendo Switch is functionally much smaller than, say, between the PS3, Xbox 360 and what the Wii was. You know what I mean? So yes, it's underpowered if you're, comparing it to what what these other consoles are, but it's still an incredibly capable console.
I think that there is a fairly wide gap in power, but I think the more important point is that a lot of these companies, whether they be indie developers or third-party developers, they don't have the budgets to take full advantage of this hardware anymore. Only like the big AAA studios funded directly by the
right, and that's what I'm saying. But then even then, we get AAA ports, right?
Right,
and
the compromises are certainly more noticeable in those cases.
Right. But the fact is, there's still enjoyable experiences. There's a possibility like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pick up the brand new Doom on my Switch, and then in addition to all that other stuff, like, and then it helps that like, okay, there's still that to weigh. Like, I can play these on the go on handheld on my Switch, as opposed to just being able to play it on my TV. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of factors that go into it. We've been on about this kind of thing time and time again. There are some other things that I'd like to mention. Keep this whole thing moving on. Really quickly, just mention that the Team Friends has won the Frosty Fest Splatfest versus Team Fam.
Sorry, Mom and Dad. Family doesn't win today.
Yeah. So, obviously, Fam was the overwhelming in terms of the actual votes. But Friend swept in terms of the actual wins. And
just a quick reminder, there's only like 5 more Splatfests left. So, if you want to play them, you should start playing the ones we've got.
Yeah. And then the inevitable announcement for Splatoon 3. I don't know. Maybe down the line.
There is that banner in Inkopolis that has a 2019 July date on it. And it's been in there since the game came out.
Yeah. We'll have to see if anything comes around that month,
I think something will happen because, a few of my friends that usually don't read into this kind of stuff or even thinking that it might mean something.
Right.
So who knows? Could be cool.
So that's pretty cool. I did not play this Splatfest. I was busy with other things. Life has been very hectic.
I had like something going on during that whole weekend. I just can't remember what it was.
Yeah. Well, regardless, congratulations to Team Friends. How wholesome. In France, Nintendo has sold over 2 million Nintendo Switches.
We're really spreading the love, guys.
Yeah, just
all over the world.
Yeah, just hearing some of these numbers in these individual countries and these individual markets, like, it's really, really interesting to see, right?
I think Kotaku even had an article about I don't remember what country, but there was a Middle Eastern country that was trying to get their Smash Brothers competitive scene going.
Yeah.
And I love reading stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just knowing that we're reaching wider audiences every day.
Yeah. So all I'm sourcing this from my Nintendo News. Some interesting uh, things to note is that they also have 3DS sales for France in here, which has sold a grand total of 5.5 million. Um, Mario Kart 8 is the third best-selling game of 2018, behind FIFA 19 and Red Dead Redemption 2.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Super Mario Party is the fifth best-selling game of 2018.
Wow.
All platforms combined at retail. Pokemon is seventh. Super Mario Odyssey 8. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate ninth. All of those titles sold more than 400,000. So
I've been seeing Super Mario Party near the top of a lot of best-selling lists, and that's kind of exciting.
it's because it's an actually a good Mario Party game.
But it's nice to see that it's converting into sales,
Yes.
which means that they are more incentivized to make an even better Mario Party.
Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like the better the game, the more sales we get. It's funny how that works.
Some other big sales news. Sensor Tower reported that Nintendo's 2018 mobile revenue was $348 million.
And
with,
most of that coming from Fire Emblem Heroes.
Right, but in second place is Dragalia Lost, which I
Yeah.
think is a good thing to note. Dragalia Lost, their most recent mobile offering, 4-player cooperative online, a top-down dungeon crawler, action adventure RPG. Really fun game. If you haven't tried it out, give it a shot. It's nice to see that it's actually raking in a little bit of money for Nintendo. Obviously, nothing compared to Fire Emblem Heroes, but it is a new IP, and that's worth noting. It did topple Animal Crossing and Super Mario Run.
I love seeing this whole metric for how much Fire Emblem Heroes has made in total, which is $487 million.
It's crazy. Like overnight with Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem became like a AAA Nintendo IP.
Yeah. I wonder how that will translate in terms of sales for Three Houses this spring.
A good question for sure. That said, we haven't seen much of that game yet, so it's been hard to gauge consumer interest.
Right.
Just outside of like your regular Fire Emblem fans like us. So I'm interested in seeing what that turns out, or how that turns out.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. You know, I've been working on a video, and talking about games for 2019, and I got the chance to really go back and look at some of these trailers for some of these games, some of this footage that's been out there, and I can definitely say every time I watch the Three Houses trailer, I get a little bit more excited because it looks fantastic. Like they're really looks like they're really pushing the envelope with that series, you know.
Yeah, the trailer really focused on what Fire Emblem was doing new, and that's pretty cool. So I think that's gonna be an exciting title. Also, the song in that trailer, I love it.
Yeah, it's really stellar. But that's about it for all the Nintendo specific news. There are a few things I put at the very end that are kind of a note that we can talk about. But first, let's talk a little bit about some third-party happenings.
RPG fans are going to be excited because the Bravely Default Twitter account announced that a new game is in development. So we've had Bravely First, or Bravely Default, and then Bravely Second on 3DS, two critically acclaimed RPGs from this is Square Enix, correct?
Yes.
And now they've announced that a new game is coming. They did not announce what platform, though. They have been like dropping Joy-Cons and Nintendo Switch hardware and all of the little art they've been uploading over the last year. So I think it's a pretty safe bet that it's going to be a Switch game.
Yeah.
But is it a port, or will it be Bravely Third?
I don't know. I think it might be interesting to get like a port, maybe like a port of the first two games to Switch. You know what I mean? and then setting the stage for a third game down the line.
For sure. It's a series I'm kind of interested in. Like as I've gotten more and more engaged with RPGs over the last year. Last year was the year of RPGs for Brandon. I'm getting really familiar with JRPGs, and I'm starting to have a much bigger appreciation for them than I've ever had before. So I kind of want to experiment a little bit, and if the Bravely games come to Switch, I will definitely give them a
Man,
shot.
that's always a fun like transition for like literally anything. Maybe it's JRPGs. I remember for me in college it was anime, like really discovering a medium that like you didn't have a lot of context for. And then once you kind of like, bathe in it for a minute, then you realize, oh man, I'm so glad I'm having this experience that I wouldn't have been having otherwise.
I gotta owe it. I owe it to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is kind of like the first game that I dipped my toes in, and then I realized I liked it a lot. Then I went and played the entirety of the Kingdom Hearts series, and now I'm just trying out a few more things. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm excited. uh, it's so cool. Like RPGs, a lot of them are so different that you have to learn the individual systems, but there's something so rewarding and exciting about overcoming the challenge of learning it in the first place.
Yeah,
Like once I start to really understand it and learn how to strategize and make the best moves, I feel really good about myself.
yeah,
So I think RPGs are super rewarding, and of course you get a really good story on top of it in most cases.
yeah.
I want to dip my toes into Tales of Vesperia, which also came out today,
Uh-huh.
the definitive edition. That game has multiplayer, which I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Where, like up to 4 players can locally do the combat, do the battles, because it's real time.
In terms of JRPGs that I have yet to play that have already been released, I still got my eye on Octopath Traveler. Again, I just had so much fun with that demo, and I can't wait till I can get around to actually, purchasing it or borrowing it from someone and playing through that because, oh man, I really like the battle system in that game.
In Octopath.
Yeah.
Oh, then you'll probably like Bravely because it's pretty similar.
I probably would. Though that is not the only JRPG that we're talking about that's coming to the Nintendo Switch today. There's also Capcom. Is it Capcom?
This is Capcom.
Yeah, Capcom announced Dragon's Dogma: Dark Horizon. Dark Arisen. Okay. It's
this
coming.
Was super exciting to me.
Yeah, I've seen this game around, though I've never really given it much thought or looked much into it.
I've heard it called the Western Monster Hunter. I
it's a
super accurate phrase.
I definitely got some Monster Hunter vibes from watching the trailer.
It's a third-person action RPG with a relatively intricate battle system, from what I understand, or combat. And that's what's kind of appealing to me, just the 3D combat.
Right.
It also has like a pawn system, I think is what it's called, for your partners, and apparently that's like a really customizable thing. I'm excited to like delve into this because I remember when this game was first announced, because I was keeping a close eye on the teaser website because I thought it was going to be a Monster Hunter game.
Yeah.
Ended up not being a Monster Hunter game, but this series, it's one game, but Dark Arisen was a HD remaster with additional stuff and some fixes.
Yeah.
It's got quite the following. So I've been interested in getting in. One of our friends, Josiah, talks pretty highly of this game. Not Western legitimately, Western thematically.
Yes. And not Western in terms of a Western, but...
Right. Though we did have one of those released last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a pretty good get. This will be completely new to, dedicated Nintendo Switch and Nintendo console owners.
You're right.
And it's also great to just get another game from Capcom, because Capcom seemed a little apprehensive at the beginning of the Switch's life, but all of the games that they've released have achieved pretty high sales.
Yeah.
So I anticipate we'll be seeing a lot more from Capcom next year, or this year, I should say. This
Yeah,
is just started.
yeah. Here's hoping that we get a little more Monster Hunter, even though we still have to play Generations.
It just came out at a bad time.
Yeah, it really did.
Last year was too good.
Yeah. Another noteworthy release on the Switch is Ollie Ollie Switch Stance. If
Great
you're in
name.
some of those sweet skating games, I've heard a ton of good things about not just this game, but these games. Considering Ollie Ollie Switch Stance includes Ollie Ollie and Ollie Ollie 2. Welcome to Ollywood. So this is...
so it's a pair of games.
Huh?
So it's a pair of games.
It is a pair of games. It is the Ollie Ollie collection, you might say. So you'll probably getting a little more bang for your buck. You know, you don't have to just play the one game. You're getting 2 games all in one. 2D side-scrolling world, simple controls, rapid-fire gameplay have found perhaps their most perfect home yet on Nintendo Switch. 120 tricks and grinds, 50 cunningly crafted levels, 250 challenges, plus fan favorites sports mode, daily grind, and unlockable rad mode. So, seems like this
Sounds
is...
like a pretty fun game, honestly. I love the way it looks.
Yeah. I remember when this game came out and it got, fantastic reviews, and I like the look of it. I like what's going on with it. I'm a big fan of...
I've never heard of it.
Oh, really?
Today was the first day I'd ever heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm also just a big fan of just skating games in general, like going back to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4. So little more skateboarding, right? There's also that one documentary that I need to finish, which is I've taken too long on that, but I digress.
Minding the Gap. I need to watch that too.
Yeah. The last thing in terms of third party that I thought was of note is in line with the trend of more people and more studios doing cross-platform play, which I think is largely a good thing. I am almost always in favor of cross-platform play. There might be a few reasons for not doing cross-platform play, but I think for the vast majority of the time it's a good thing. And so
it's especially good for the developer, because if their whole game relies on that online community.
Oh yeah, so
Paladin's
Champions of the Realm is a free-to-play game, and I've heard some good things about it.
Paladins.
And what?
Paladins?
Paladins. It's all the same. Stop making fun of me, Brandon.
I didn't know if you were joking.
No, that was legitimate.
It's Paladins.
Okay. But they're going cross-platform. It looks like I'm guessing this is all the platforms that it is on. It looks like there's some other things, and I think we knew about this beforehand. But the update just went live. It also...
This is something we knew about.
Yeah. It also includes cross progression, which is something that I think also needs to be more common. I would love cross progression.
The only thing getting me from buying Monster Hunter on PC.
Pretty much.
And the fact that the updates are 5 months late.
Right. If they ever had cross progression and the updates, were in line, then I would love that. And that pretty much is it. There's just a few other things of note that I put down here at the bottom. Things that I thought were pretty cool that people should definitely check out. The God of War art director has art that he has posted of Super Smash Bros. Characters, and it is really, really slick.
Yeah, I've been following this for the last couple days.
Yeah. So they have.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna. They just look really slick. Obviously, they tend a little bit more realistic. I'm a big fan of his depiction of Bowser.
Yeah.
Like, what a transformation! But it also, like, it's very true, right? To his design as well.
And then there's like this kind of slimmed down Samus.
Yeah.
This like more realistic approach to what her suit would look like.
Yeah.
And then you look at this Fox McCloud, this like buff Fox McCloud.
Yeah.
This huge upper torso.
And there's also a few more that aren't included in this article. There is a Sonic the Hedgehog, which looks eerily like the depiction of the movie Sonic the Hedgehog, which is interesting. There's also a Mewtwo who... Come again?
I wonder if that was intentional.
Yeah. There's also a Mewtwo who looks absolutely fantastic, and a Mega Man as well.
Oh, he actually made Mewtwo look like a cat.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
But it's not jarring.
Yeah.
What's up, Twisted Toast?
So, I mean, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just post one of these Instagram links in the chat for you guys. I want to encourage you guys to really to look at those because I think they're just great. And if you go
realistic rendition of Mega Man is really impressive.
Yeah, you just get talented artistic people and it's amazing to see what they can do.
I love how he achieved like a very true like image of Mega Man, but like it's realistic but not jarring.
Right. So yeah, outside of that, the last thing I just wanted to mention before we wrap up the podcast is just not like it's surprising necessarily, but that Satoru Iwata's name appears as the executive producer in Super Mario Bros. U, which is something that was in the game before, but man, it never gets old to think just how much of an impact Iwata had on where Nintendo is at today. And what we are experiencing in 2019, he most definitely planted so many seeds in that company, and have just set it up for success, so I look forward to being able to play through Super Mario Bros. U, a deluxe on my Switch. I look forward to seeing what other things come this year. I look forward to seeing Animal Crossing gameplay for 2019. And also Brandon being wrong about Metroid Prime 4 not releasing this year. So
we put $20 down on it.
Oh, yeah. I think I phrased that wrong because you think it's coming out this year. I don't think it's coming out this year. But that is neither here nor there. Brandon, is there anything else that you want to put out there before we wrap up?
We haven't talked a ton about Nintendo in 2019. But like at this point, before the Direct comes out, I don't think there's a ton to talk about. There's a lot of games coming, but we kind of hit on that earlier in the show. That said, I'm going to pose a question.
Okay.
Obviously, Nintendo hasn't announced everything that's coming this year. What first-party Nintendo game coming to Switch this year that hasn't been announced do you think will be coming?
That will be coming. That's a really good question. I you have to ask like what's missing from this lineup, right?
I think
Um,
Twisted Toast is pretty close to the answer.
oh, you think so?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if there's going to be more Zelda. There might be. I mean, obviously this is all pure conjecture, pure what I'd like to see, what I think is possible that we see. Um, I think if I think I'm anticipating that Star Fox spinoff. I think that's what I'm
Grand
anticipating.
Prix.
Yeah, I think that actually exists. Obviously, Retro has been silent for quite some time, and they have been working on a game, and we could totally be wrong about that, but I could see that being something, you know. Yeah, I think we're gonna get Star Fox this year.
I think that's a pretty good call. Uh, I would love to see that. For me, I think we're going to be seeing a top-down multiplayer Zelda,
Okay.
and I don't think it's going to be developed by Nintendo. Uh, it's either going to be Grezzo did Triforce Heroes, right?
Yes.
It'll either be a game developed by Grezzo, or it will be a game developed by Capcom, because Capcom has developed 4 top-down Zelda games for Nintendo in the past.
This is true.
And I think it would be kind of cool to see them take another shot at that.
I would be totally down with that. I'm always down for more Zelda. Um, so
Well, maybe it was 3. Did they do Link's Awakening? Or was that in-house?
I think Link's Awakening is also Capcom.
I know they did the Oracle games.
Yeah, they did the Oracle game. Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. No, that was not Capcom. Huh.
The Legend of Zelda games developed by Capcom include Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons,
Minish
A Link
Cap.
to the Past, and Four Swords, and Minish Cap.
Okay.
So that kind of falls in line with multiplayer Zeldas.
Yep.
So yeah, that's my call. Also, Minish Cap's one of my favorite top-down Zeldas.
Yeah, I still need to play through Minish Cap. I wish that I had access to it somewhere, but I don't.
I feel like Nintendo fans would, go into backlash mode if Nintendo themselves made a top-down Zelda, because they historically do.
Right.
So I think having Capcom handle a top-down Zelda would soften the blow and make people accept it more.
Right.
And honestly, I don't care if Capcom develops it or Nintendo develops it. I just want a new Zelda game.
Well, I'd be down.
So yeah, that's my call for 2019 unannounced game that's coming this year.
I'm seeing some calls in the chat for Pikmin. I think we're overdue for some Pikmin, especially after
Pikmin 4.
Yeah, where's Pikmin 4?
It's been close to the end of the development for 3 years.
So maybe we'll get I mean, I think Nintendo could definitely use an RTS in their lineup. So I'd be down for that. I'm a big fan. I'd also love to see maybe a re-release of Pikmin 3. Another port, please.
I was gonna say I think we're gonna see that one this year.
So
if Pikmin 4 is coming out this year, I don't think we'll see the port. If it's coming out next year, we're getting the port this year.
Yeah. Well,
I think that does it.
Yeah, I'm excited for 2019. Particularly, I'll say it again and again. Give me Animal Crossing. I need Animal Crossing.
That's going to be one of the first games we see in a Direct this year.
Oh, I can't wait. I think
it has to be. Because that game has to be in the first 7 or 8 months of the year.
Yeah.
They can't release it later than summer.
It has been the longest gap between Animal Crossing games since the series came into existence. So It's time. Give it to me. I need it. But I digress. We all digress. This has been the Nintendo Stuff podcast here at the Break Room Arcade with yours truly, Logan Welliver, and my good buddy and the father of this channel, Brandon Miracle. We love talking to you. What are you guys looking forward to in 2019? Let us know in the chat. Let us know in our Discord. Our link for the Discord is down in the description below. Feel free to follow me at Loggy Doves, Brandon at Baba Babs, and us all collectively at Break Room Arcade on Twitter. Thank you for joining us for this wonderful event.
Wonderfundle.
We do the Nintendo Stuff every Friday at 7:30 p.m. CST. We did it a little earlier tonight. So thank you so much for tuning in. So don't break your backs, break in the games. But for now, break time is over.
Wonderfundle.